How do you feel about when people propose the wide receiver thing? Do you feel like that's disrespectful to what you've been able to accomplish as a quarterback?
Absolutely. I feel I should have a chance at quarterback. You know, they not used to seeing a quarterback like so shifty and like fast at the same time, but you don't give me credit for throwing. It is what it is. I'm gonna show you I can do it. When I first started playing, my mom put on pads. We used to hit, and when she put them pads on, she rocked me. She just toughened me up. You know, she always believed in me. You know, she always wanted me to be the best that I can be. I love everyone, man. Even the ones who don't show me love, I just got to do me.
This year's most valuable player, Lamar Jackson.
Appreciate that, appreciate that. There's been a lot of doubt going on, me being a running back, receiver. I didn't want to talk about the doubters. I wanted to talk about the ones who believed in me. My mother, this woman's a superhero. She's raising 4 of us, you know, not asking for a handout, just see how she grind and work, not wanting me to get a job, you know, telling me to focus on football. If she can do that, I can do anything.
The 2023 most valuable player, Lamar Jackson.
Not bad for a running back.
And Lamar Jackson does it again.
Who is this guy?
Lamar Jackson is gone.
Putting on a clinic.
Lamar's the most rushing yards by a quarterback in NFL history.
Why shouldn't he be the MVP?
Could be his 3rd MVP season.
Lamar Jackson earned the right to win the MVP.
I need the naysayers to keep going, you know, keep adding fuel to that fire for me to keep being Lamar Jackson. They gonna get a Super Bowl out of me. Believe that.
Everything on the way to the Super Bowl. So Saturday night, we get the Steelers at the Ravens. This is actually your biggest spread of the weekend. The Ravens are favored by 9.5 points in this one. The Steelers losing 4 in a row heading into this game. They have also, keep in mind, not won a playoff game since 2016. Let's welcome back in Lige Douzable, Pete Prisco here. We're going to start with the MVP conversation. So give me a minute. I need to get this out. I was looking up stats. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. Lamar Jackson, better completion percentage, more passing yards, more yards per attempt. Lamar Jackson, 41 passing touchdowns. Josh Allen, 28. Josh has 12 rushing touchdowns. Lamar only has 4. Josh Allen, 2 more interceptions. How do you measure MVP?
Why don't we ask the voter?
I know
he
the
has
voter
a vote.
out here.
I'm not going to reveal my vote. I'm not
But
allowed
up
to.
and down the board, for the most part, Lamar has the better stats.
Lamar has better stats.
So
There's
how do you measure it?
This is one of the closest. This will be one of the closest races we've had, and it wouldn't surprise me to see them actually both split the vote.
Yeah.
It's a tough vote. You can go back, you know, you rattled off all those stats. You can rattle off the stats that he has 9 Pro Bowlers. He has 2 on his team. He has 2 more wins than he does. I mean, there's a lot of things you can really rattle off, and there's also a lot of stat data. He has 100 and something more snaps, or 200. Actually, it's now about 150 more snaps, and if you project the numbers, they're similar. So there's a lot of things you can say. If it was Offensive Player of the Year award, Lamar Jackson clearly has better numbers than Josh Allen, but that's not what the award is. The award is MVP, and he has an MVP candidate in his backfield in Derrick Henry. So it's a tough vote. It's a split. It will be a very competitive split vote, I think. Either one can win it.
So you didn't answer my question, though. How do you weigh it?
Well, what's the award? The award is MVP.
The award is MVP. So
it's not, you're right. So you don't look at this. If you want to really go back to last year and look at the stats, Dak Prescott had same amount of wins and had better stats. So you could have made a case for Dak Prescott being the MVP.
And Christian McCaffrey.
But Lamar Jackson was the MVP because of the way he carried his team, and that's why you. That's how you will. That's what the award is about. MVP.
So I go back and forth with this, and I hate how this conversation has just turned ugly on both sides in regards to Pete's point. Like, you can have an opinion based off facts and film without berating the other guy in this race. Like, it's ridiculous. We should be applauding both of these guys. They both have had elite seasons, right? When I go to this and I look at most valuable, I get what Pete is saying. When you look at Lamar, he's got 9 Pro Bowls, but there's a caveat to that. The fan vote is a third of the vote, right? And a lot of those dudes won't be on the All-Pro team. And I believe that just came out today, if I'm not mistaken, the All-Pro list.
His backfield will be on it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but Dawkins is most likely going to be on the All-Pro list. Deion Dawkins.
He won't be on it.
I look at it like this. I break it down, and when you look at the schedules, right, when you talk about playoff caliber teams, yes, Lamar doesn't have the record that Josh has, but he's also had a harder road. He's played 10 caliber playoff teams, and he's 7-3 against those teams. Josh Allen's played 5 teams that are in the current playoffs right now. He's 2-3 against those teams.
And he also beat both #1 seeds.
And I get you, but then Lamar beat him head up.
Yeah, he beat him with #1s. He beat him with Derrick Henry. He threw for less than 200 yards in that game. So
he threw for like 70% completion percentage.
The point is, there's a counter argument to every single way you lay it out on both sides, and that's why it's going to be a close vote.
Yeah, and to Pete's point, I would not be surprised if this is actually a split MVP. We saw that with Steve McNair and Peyton Manning. It's that close because Josh has, don't get me wrong, Josh has elevated his team. You don't get to choose who's on your schedule. You play who's on your schedule. And when you look at it in the beginning of the season, everybody thought this team, including myself, was going to be in a rebuild year, and Josh elevated them to the #2 seed and the AFC East crown. So for sure, when you talk about the most valuable and what you've done with the talent around you, I get that, but I think you have to wait. Like you said, there's a counter argument to everything. This one is extremely close.
Just 2 times in the history of the NFL there have been co-MVPs. Yep. Do you guys know what you know?
Well, we just named
one. You named Manning and McNair.
Yeah.
The other one was 97.
Who was it?
Brett Favre and Barry Sanders.
Oh. That was back in the day when they actually valued running back.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. All right, this is the guy that you were just mentioning, and a lot of this is about weapons. Who do they have to throw to? And this Ravens playoff run is going to look very different this year because of Derrick Henry. You look at the stats: 17 games, 325 carries, almost 2,000 yards, 16 touchdowns. How different is this Ravens squad with him on it?
Well, and I think he's different because he has Lamar Jackson playing quarterback in front of him. It changes the way he runs the football. It changes the way they run the football. It's not just line up, pitch it to him, and have eight bodies around his legs. You got to respect the quarterback run as well. So they work well together. Here's the thing about this playoffs for the Ravens. They are enormous for Lamar Jackson. Yeah. He's 2-4 in the playoffs. If he or Josh Allen do not get to the Super Bowl, no matter what they've done, this season is going to be labeled a failure. And sometimes that's not fair. Correct. But that's the reality of the quarterback position. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson don't get to the Super Bowl, at least get there, their seasons will be labeled as failures because that's the cruel reality of being an NFL quarterback.
When you look at it, JD, you ask, how does this Raven team look different with their Henry at the running back position? You know what the funny thing is, Pete? This Ravens team was the #1 rushing team in football last year, and for some odd reason, they just refused to run the ball in the AFC Championship game. But I liken it to what Derrick Henry said post-game versus the Browns. And John Harbaugh was eating it up if you saw his face. He was like, guys, it's time to lock in. It's time to take this to another level. And if you're Todd Monken, right, even if the run game isn't going well in the beginning, do not go away from it. Continue to run the football. Because we just saw versus the Browns, right? Derrick Henry, even if he starts off slow, it's like body blows. He just wears you down. And then the next thing you know, 40-yard run here, right? He did it earlier versus the Steelers as well. Didn't run really well in the first half, then broke one for 40 yards. You just have to continue to get him the football. I think Todd Monken learned from his mistake in the AFC Championship game, and they will literally Derrick Henry will be the focal point of this offense in the playoffs.
You have to wonder if this Steelers team, if people are going to start putting up a lot of questions, if they do not win a postseason game. They have not won one since 2016. They have lost their last 4 games heading into this. Granted, it was against the Eagles, the Ravens, the Chiefs, and the Bengals. But still, if you want to compete with the best, you got to be there. Correct. Pete, how are you evaluating the Steelers team right now?
I don't think this is a really overly talented Steelers team. And I think a lot of, people criticize Mike Tomlin, but this team, for example, has overachieved in a big way. I said all along I thought the quarterback position wasn't very good, and that's played out to be exactly how I thought it would be. Russell Wilson's not very good. He throws pop-ups down the sideline. Sometimes they make the play, sometimes they don't. The rest of the offense, very predictable. They don't run it very well. They're not great on defense like they've been in the past. They can rush the passer. That's something they can do. But you know what? Having said all that, something about this game gives me the idea that it's a third division game against another division team. Those are usually games that are close, tight-knit. You know what they do. They know what you do. You just played them a month ago. For some reason, I think the Steelers will hang around in this game. And by the way, what they need to do is come to the line of scrimmage and start going, hey, Lamar, it's a playoff game. It's a playoff game.
Oh, my God.
You could say the same thing to Mike Tomlin.
You could say that. Well, you could.
Okay,
really.
Our producer, Jack, Okay, here's Lamar in the playoffs. Jack, let's go to the thing you want to talk about.
But look at that.
Our
There's a big difference between him and the regular season.
It's a huge difference.
Yeah.
Our producer Jack, upstairs, we have a whiteboard, and he has written, "Is Mike Tomlin overrated?" Obviously, I don't think many of us agree with that, but he said he has some anti-Mike Tomlin.
Okay, longest losing streak
graphics.
by a head coach, Mike Tomlin, right there.
In the playoffs.
In the playoffs. Pete, let's hear your take on this.
He's not overrated. I think what he's done is he's actually overachieved at times with teams that weren't very good, and once they got to the playoffs, they weren't good enough to compete with the big-time teams in the AFC. So I don't think he's overrated. I think this team isn't very good. I mean, if it weren't for the Texans, I don't think the Texans are very good. They would be the worst team in the playoffs. But so I think they've overachieved, and I think he's done that a lot in his career. They haven't been great. They get to the playoffs. They just aren't good enough to win in the playoffs.
And that's the issue. I know our guy Jack, the producer, saying that Mike Tomlin's overrated, but the thing is, when you look in the beginning of the year, Pete, a lot of people, including myself, thought this would be the first year Mike Tomlin had a losing record. For most of the season, they led the AFC North, right? The last couple of weeks, because they played better competition, and to your point, they haven't had the talent to play with that better competition. They've lost games, mainly at the quarterback position. So that's been the biggest issue. So to me, it shows how good of a coach Mike Tomlin is, because he squeezes every ounce of talent on the roster. And another thing, Pete, when they go to the playoffs every year, they're not getting a high draft pick. So when you talk about like the draft and him being able to maybe get that quarterback of the future, they haven't even been able to do that. So again, kudos to Mike Tomlin. But when you talk about this game specifically, the Steelers have really struggled to run the football these last couple of weeks. They haven't done it with any consistency. Now, they ran it decently versus the Ravens and Chiefs. But, Pete, when you go down 2 scores, you become one-dimensional. You have to throw the ball, and that does not play into Russell Wilson's hands. That's not his strength at this time in his current career. For me, for them to stay in this game, they got to do they have to do what they did the first time they played them. They got to force 3 turnovers. That's, to me, is the only chance they have to win in this game. They were able to turn the Ravens over 3 times, and that's how they were able to sneak away with the win. They got to force some turnovers. They got to get the run game going. And for some reason, they got to get George Pickens. I don't know what it is between him and Russell Wilson the last couple weeks. He's an alien with the ball in his hands. He had a couple drops last week. They got to get him mentally right for this game if they have any chance.
And that is the one criticism that we can make of Mike Tomlin this season. Why can't you get him under control? You're the head coach. You're Mike Tomlin. You have skins on the wall. You have juice in your building. Control your wide receiver. When he's going off the rails and getting, unsportsmanlike conduct penalties, that's a reflection of the head coach. And Tomlin's had problems with receivers in the past. I mean, when you go back, you had Antonio Brown, Deontay Johnson. I mean, you've had a lot of guys that have had problems. So I think he needs to rein George Pickens. If George Pickens is focused and playing well, they're a different offense.
You look at this spread right now. So Ravens 9.5-point favorites. Over/under set at 44.5. Who you got in this one? Is it clear Baltimore?
The Ravens are going to win the game. I just think, for some reason, I think the Steelers and Mike Tomlin will get that team to hang around in the game.
Okay.
And I think T.J. Watt can wreck an offense. And by the way, Cam Hayward's been phenomenal.
He's been really good.
So I think they can wreck. They can keep it close. They're not going to win the game.
So I've seen this number even fluctuate to -10 on some sports books. And when you look at the history of the wild card, -10 plus underdogs are 0-12 in playoff games, and they're 2-10 against the spread. I think this will get up to -10. I don't think this is going to be close. I just think right now, 4-game losing streak, the offense is all out of sync right now. I think the Ravens handle this one easily.
It's the playoffs, Lamar.
It is.
It's the playoffs, Lamar. Hey, Lamar, it's the playoffs.
Man, they got the equalizer in Derrick.
I mean, but that's look. He is eventually going to get past that because he's too good a player. But right now, that narrative is hanging over his head.
The playoffs,
that might change this week. All right. Imagine if someone was whispering this stuff in your ear as you were doing your power rankings, Pete Prisco, which is what the last Pushing the Pile was all about.
I keep on typing.
Yep, comparing
it wouldn't bother me.
The start of the season, your power rankings, to your last power rankings that just came out on CBSSports.com. You can hear it all on Pushing the Pile. You also debate the NFL playoffs. Great questions in that one, too. Take a listen.